How founders can create more time for sales. Hi, Patrick from the Founder Revenue Academy. This episode is part of our operations series and is episode number 5. So let's get started. One gets time back on their calendar by creating and introducing efficiency into their day and into their day-to-day lives. It could be packing your gym bag the night before, making your lunch and putting it in the fridge so you don't have to do it in the morning, and so on and so forth. So I'm a huge advocate of building systems around everything you do, and I use these two examples because they are things I always do and have done for years and years and years. And because systems make things scalable, and it also becomes obvious where improvements can be made, where slight times can be shaved off, or things could be done together. You consolidate certain things, or do an activity while you're waiting for another. All this kind of stuff. When you systematize it, it will become obvious. So how you can create more time for sales, you systematize it. So let's go through some key ideas. One is create your ideal customer profile. If you've watched any of our videos before, you'll know this as your ICP. So tip here, keep this narrow in the early days. Saying you serve all companies with over 1,000 employees is too large, by way of example. So narrow this down and be hyper-specific. So next is to create your target list. I've talked about the top 100 prospect list before, i.e. those 100 companies that you've identified as the best fit for you. And in the early days, you should stick to that. You may think that you'll burn through these, but remember, you're likely to have anywhere from 3 to 6 contacts per account. So this will keep you busy when it comes to outreach. Next is to create your value proposition. This is your message of what you bring to the market. It can be structured in different ways, and a good formula for starting out is we help persona get an outcome by your technology. So good businesses will talk about the outcomes they get, but great businesses will talk about the outcomes they get, but also the shareable insights gleaned from your own technology or your own platform data. So this is what executives care about. They care about what their competitors are doing, what industry insights you could share that they don't know, market trends that they haven't quite picked up on, as opposed to talking about your features. So it really hammers the point home, outcomes trump features every single time, especially when you're having a conversation with a senior executive. Then you create your top of funnel process. This is where you are prospecting or you are getting in touch with people when they're not expecting your outreach or your phone call, your email, things like that, asking if they've got a problem that you might, or asking if they suffer with the problem that your solution could potentially fix. The fastest way to elicit a response from your market in this way is to pick up the telephone and speak to them. So I'm a big advocate of the phone, but I do appreciate there are going to be some businesses where email or social or other forms of go-to-market are slightly better than the telephone. But if we are to accept that the phone is good, I know this might strike fear into a few founders, but sort of put it this way. You could conceivably have 30 conversations in 1 week with your target market by discussing what you have over the phone, as opposed to getting 30 responses to an email campaign. And these responses may come in across 4 to 6 weeks. And to get 30 responses, you would then need to send a serious volume of emails. So you're effectively spamming your whole potential market before you've actually managed to have a conversation with them. And it again brings up the shutters. I talked about the shutters and how we conditioned to do that in a previous video. So if you have a message you want to test out, surely it makes sense to test it and test it quickly rather than labouring the point. So that's why I'm always a big fan of using the telephone where possible over email, simply because the speed by which you can glean feedback on your message. So finally, document all of these processes. If you document them, you'll create more time for sales because everyone will be able to follow the process that has been set up and not worry about thinking it out for themselves, where to get information from, what questions to ask, all this kind of thing. So I'm a big advocate of founders being the first salespeople for their businesses because it's humbling and it creates a greater sense of empathy as to how hard the craft is. But by doing this, you're moving as much friction as possible for further team members to come and follow the trail that you've blazed. So if you're able to document as much as possible, it means that all the information that you've got in your mind is now on your shared drive or something like that. And that's going to be the difference between whether you can scale effectively and not really scale at all, especially if everything is housed in your mind. So document everything. Do not be the founder that keeps it in your head because this isn't scalable. And you can focus on having conversations with your target market, making money, and growing the business. So how can founders create more time for sales? You systematize it. So that wraps up today's video. Remember, we create these videos a lot to help our founders and run these mini-series on all the key pillars of scaling B2B tech startups. So if you haven't seen the other videos in this operations series or the other series at all, please check them out. And also don't forget to join our community with the link below, where you'll see all this content and get to interact with many like-minded founders. I'll see you in there.